Hey guys, how's it going? This is Burgess, and today I want to do something a little bit different from my usual watercolor tutorials and demos. You see, I got this set of brush pens from Amazon in Dubai. The set has 20 colors and it came with a beautiful water brush, so I thought why not give it a go. So today I wanted to do some flower doodles with these, just to try them out, and basically do some chit-chatting as well. Now, as you will soon notice in this video, that flowers are not my forte, so my doodles are not going to be perfect, but that won't put me off doodling. I don't let things like that put me off trying to paint something new or to try out a new medium. So one of the things I do want you to do is, if you are thinking about taking up painting, then to just start. Don't analyze it and don't overthink it. I find that a lot of people never start anything new because they spend so much time thinking about it that they often never get started. Also, they're afraid of it turning out bad. Without even trying, they've assumed that they might not be good at it, or they wonder what people will think about it. But my advice to you is, don't bother with what other people think or say about what you're doing, because that's their problem and not yours. To be honest, I really think I'm pretty bad with brush pens, and I'm fairly certain that this doodling is not going to be pretty, but I'm still attempting it and recording it and showing it, and you should think like that as well. Just be mindful though, that when you first start to draw or paint, it's natural that it might not be perfect unless you were born with the ability to draw and paint, and most people are not. Rest assured that most people whose art you see on social media like Facebook, YouTube and Instagram were not born with the ability to draw and paint. Like most of us, they learnt it, and some are still learning. Even experienced painters produce works that are sometimes not great, but they move on to the next piece, and you should too. So during your learning process, sometimes what you produce is going to be bad, sometimes it's going to be good, and sometimes just embarrassing. And that is absolutely fine because it happens to everyone. In fact, that reminds me of how I started painting back in 1994. At the time I worked for a company called the Copyright Licensing Agency in London's Tottenham Court Road, and we'd travel up and down the country doing some copyright-related work. On one business trip, we went up to Scotland to attend the Edinburgh Book Festival, and it was after I came back that I got the painting bug. During that trip, I remember one morning my colleagues and I decided to pop into the Scottish National Gallery near Princes Street. I think we were just trying to get out of the cold. It was absolutely freezing that morning. When we got inside, I remember I took one look at this huge painting hanging on a wall. It was an oil, and my immediate reaction was, I can do better than that. And at the time, I wasn't joking. Of course, I feel like it should have been a joke then. It was an abstract, and no offense to abstract painters, I just didn't get it. So I suppose I could be forgiven for making that comment off the cuff. So when I got back to London, I decided to visit my local library to pick up some books on how to draw. Back then, I didn't know how to draw anything. And, we're all lucky nowadays that if anybody wants to learn how to draw or how to paint or how to do anything, the first thing they do is go to YouTube. Back then, we didn't have anything like that, so we had to rely on going to our local library to pick up any instruction books that we could find. So I found a couple, and I started drawing, and for days and days I drew and sketched and sketched. And here's the thing, I didn't realize that each of my drawings was as bad and as flat as my previous one. I just didn't know how to get things to look 3D. Now that means that I wasn't progressing at all. But because I was oblivious to the lack of my artistic abilities and skills, I didn't know I wasn't progressing. And do you know what? I think that was a very good thing. So I think it's so important to be ignorant of your artistic abilities. If you think that you're getting nowhere, then it's likely that you'll give up very quickly. I would have given up too, but I just didn't know I wasn't improving. In fact, I thought I was getting better, so much so that I then decided to get myself some paints and brushes. Now, this is where my ignorance really played in. Back then, we didn't have the internet to do our research on materials that we need. For example, today you can simply Google what you need to start in watercolor, for example. But there was no equivalent back then except a library. So I played it by ear, and one lunchtime at work, I popped down to Paper Chase. Now, this was a massive stationer on Tottenham Court Road, and it's sadly closed down now. Something about not embracing an online shopping model, which is a bit of a shame. So I had no idea what I was supposed supposed to buy. In fact, I didn't even know that there were different mediums in my mind. I had an image of Nancy Kominsky, and I remember her using a palette knife instead of a brush. I didn't know she was painting in oil. I just remembered that the paint was creamy. Back then, I didn't even know that there were different brands of paint. For example, back then I hadn't even heard of Dale Rowney or Winsor & Newton. And so in my ignorance, I picked up a set of random paints that turned out to be watercolors, and a bristle brush that turned out to be an oil painter's brush. And at the weekend, attempted to paint a spider plant, but I didn't know how to get that dark vein on the leaves. The one in the set that runs through the center of the leaf. I mean, I do now, but back then I used to paint straight from the tube, a green paint straight from the tube to get that vein in there, and I applied it with a knife. I remember now how bad that painting back then was, but then back then I thought it was great, and the paintings that followed were as streaky, and the colors were really all off. Then one afternoon, I happened to catch ALWYN CRAWSHAW on his series A Brush with Art. This was running on Channel 4 every Wednesday afternoon, and I'd take Wednesday afternoons off almost every week until the series finished, just so I could catch it. And I happened to catch this one for the first time. And to be honest with you, I'll tell you, this chap is such a wonderful artist and such a great teacher that just watching one episode of him painting was enough to tell me where I was going wrong, and the next painting was a lot better. Now, ALWYN was the founder and the very first president of the Society for All Artists. Now, at the time, it was called the Society for Amateur Artists. And I remember I joined immediately because I liked his encouraging teaching style and his down-to-earth personality. And it was fun being a member of the society in those days. I really used to look forward to their quarterly magazine and the members gallery, especially that gallery gave every member a chance to be published if their artwork was chosen by the SAA judges. It was always frantic looking for that page to see if my art had been chosen for that issue. And I also remember the disappointment of not being selected if I didn't interpret their theme as the way they wanted it to. But they did choose my paintings for at least 5 of their issues, so that's something I always remember. To be honest, looking back at those submissions, though, I have to admit that they were, well, not great back then. However, I thought that they were, and that's the key, you see. Always think that your work is fine. Be your own cheerleader and let no one discourage you with their negative comments about your art. And I'll tell you, that's why I really liked ALWYN CRAWSHAW. And it reminds me of a funny and very embarrassing story that happened to me back in 1997. This was when the SAA held one of its annual exhibitions around the country. And this time it was happening in London. And I happened to be in London at the time, and I decided to go. So when I got there, it was really crowded. There was this huge stage in the middle of the hall, which was teeming with people, including June and ALWYN. As soon as June spotted me, she made her way through the crowd to meet me. Can you imagine that? She actually spotted me in that huge, humongous crowd and made her way straight to me through that crowd. It was so sweet of her. She immediately gave me her autograph on the catalogue I was carrying, and then suggested I come up to the stage where ALWYN was so he could give me his autograph too. And the stage, I noticed, had this long, huge mural. It was a wall type of thing, and it was in progress. And I later learned that mural was going to be donated to the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. And I noticed that the wall was divided into rows of small tiles, and the idea was that people could paint each square. So thanks to my contribution, according to that evolution theme, the fetus evolved into a landscape and then into a baby. I have to tell you that I was so embarrassed. I could have died. I kept apologizing for the mistake because it was there now, permanent. But June and ALWYN were very gracious about it, and both held my hand tightly and said, never mind, it's all good, because they could see I was really upset. It's okay, he was saying. You were enthusiastic, which is a good thing when it comes to painting. It's okay. He kept saying that. And eventually I still feel embarrassed about it now, and when I look back at it, it's really embarrassing. And I was glad that I didn't have to see it again, thankfully. Or so I thought. Months later, when the magazine appeared, the society ran a piece on the exhibition and the mural. There was this photo of ALWYN standing beside one of the child members. I think he might have been, maybe, I would say, around 7, who had also painted on the mural, and they published his tile. And get this, it turned out that tile happened to be right next to mine, which was also in clear view. So now I'd completely forgotten what the picture looked like, but then there it was right in front of me. So I've kept that, and it's coming up on your screen now, so you can see, and I've circled around the landscape, which is right bang in the middle of the fetus and the baby. I mean, back then it was all very exciting, but when I moved to Dubai back in 1995, I gave up painting for nearly 20 years, and strangely enough earned the nickname Art Materials Collector, because I had a collection of paints and brushes and paper, but I never used them. Then around 2019, I started painting again, when a friend encouraged me to draw something and let her see it. I was down about so many things back then, and I think my friend was trying to distract me so that I had something else to think about. And really, that is also the reason I started my channel. It was to give me something to think about, something to take my mind off things, of my troubles, as it were. And really, it was also to share my art with people. To be honest with you, most people think that every YouTuber just wants to get monetized, and that's why they're after views and subscribers. That's not me. I don't care if I never get monetized, because my main goal has never been to earn money from YouTube. My main goal has been to share my art with people. And that's why I get frustrated every time I post a video and the number of views is so low. But I suppose if just 100 people watch my video, 100 people I don't know who watch my video, I've accomplished the task of sharing my art. Now, I'm looking at this doodle, and I think it could be a lot better. I think that if I painted this again, I think I know how I could improve upon it. But the premise here was just to try out these pens to see what sort of marks I could make with them. One thing I have noticed is that the yellow could have been more intense. I do hope you enjoyed my painting. And sorry about nattering on like that, but please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment, because that's what the YouTube algorithm likes. And do consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and see you again next time.